Cricket boards actually make watching their games almost impossible now. I spend almost as much time trying to find where I can view it as I do actually following the action. That is why I use NordVPN. They let me find all the cricket I want to watch while protecting me from the nasty side of the internet. Nord will free your cricket matches. Grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/good areas to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus 4 additional months on top. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Watch every match with NordVPN.
Hello, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Good Areas Live. I'm Behram who you can find at DefMango on Twitter. And with me is Varun Alvaconda, who, even if you try, you will not be able to find him on social media. And we are here to preview the upcoming 5-match test series between England and India in England, which kicks off at Headingley on Friday. Varun, Graham Swan has dubbed this as a warm-up series for the Ashes. How much does that wind you up?
No, I think the full sentence was fine. I think it's just classic media headlines, isn't it?
I mean, honestly, I'm very perplexed by this constant obsession with the Ashes, even with the World Test Championship cycle existing, because every test match is important. It has percentage points. Yet English cricket is or seems to be centered around the Ashes. And I mean, Jimmy Anderson could have been playing this series if not for that, obsession. So I don't know, man. I kind of feel like it's a bit bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 150-year-old history compared to something which started 6 years ago, isn't it? So I guess that's their logic. So I assume the more it grows, the more they'll care about it.
Anyway, I still feel like it's a marquee series.
Well,
but
it took them, 44 years to care about the ODI World Cup?
That's also true. But anyway, with respect to it being a marquee series, of course, like the fact that both Rohit and Kohli aren't around anymore, it does diminish the series in terms of like crowd pull and advertising, general marketability, and perhaps even TV audiences. We don't know that yet, but you'd expect it to have some sort of an impact. But this is still a very, very exciting series because you've got, a new look India, and they've got lots of stuff to figure out. And England are a bit more settled, but are they really, right?
Yeah, I think England's probably batting is largely settled, you'd say. The bowling is out. It's not unsettled. It's just everyone's injured all the time.
Yeah, that's also true. And also, if you think about it, right, like their seam bowling attack is, it's looking quite light. And I know that India has lots of like fresh new batters out there who still have to stake their claim. Sai Sudarshan probably being the biggest one. But then again, it's not like they're coming up against a bowling attack which will eat them up in a blink, right? Like this could be very, very exciting or tantalizing even.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is not the strongest England bowling attack we've seen. Ever since Broad and Anderson have started playing together, I assume, right?
Yeah. Who, by the way, why are they known as Broderson and not Androd?
That is a very good point, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Anyway, let's start with England. I know there's lots of stuff to talk about with respect to India, but we'll come to that later because England have actually announced their playing 11 for this test, which they always do. And we created a playing 11 for them on our Good Areas chat. And this was exactly the same one. Like they've basically selected a good team over here. You've got Crockett opening the batting, right? Ollie Pope makes it ahead of Jacob Bethel, Joe Root and Harry Brook and Ben Stokes, and even Jamie Smith. Those 4 guys were expected to be there, much like Crockett up top. And then you've got Vokes at 8, which is honestly a bit of a luxury. And Bryden Cass also bats, who is in at 9, and he can crank it up. And so can Josh Tongue, right? With Shoaib Bashir being the only spinner who will have to bowl to a lot of left-handed batters in India, which is a good sign for him, honestly. So how do you think, or how do you like this team?
Yeah, I quite like the batting. I think I don't actually hate Ollie Pope at 3, but it's just he's so high variance. That's the thing.
You actually pulled out
for him.
the statistic of the century for Ollie Pope. So just to tell our viewers, Varun was busy with his data crunching, and he found that for test batters who have scored north of 3,000 runs, if you look at median balls per dismissal, well, Ollie Pope has the 3rd worst ratio for median balls per dismissal ever. And the only people who have worse ratios are Stuart Broad at number 1 and Shane Warne at number 2. And those guys were primarily bowlers. So that tells you a story.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's what I'm just looking his numbers up again. So yeah, his median balls per dismissal is 27. So that essentially means 50% of the time he's getting out for less than 27 balls faced, and 50% of the time is more than that, right? That is
such a
very
better
low.
way to
That's
explain
extremely
it.
low. Yeah,
I
yeah.
struggled to explain this on the
Yeah,
Pro
no, I
Sports
saw it.
podcast.
I was just laughing, trying to see you explain it.
But his median score in these 27 deliveries is 16.5. So it's not like he's lighting the world or setting the world on fire, right?
Yeah, it's a decent strike rate. It's not a terrible strike rate for for someone who's pretty much, I guess, like not extreme. I think it's fine. I think his median strike rate is about 57. You take that any day for him at number 3.
What this also tells you, Varun, is that he's a bit of a standard deviation king, such that I
Yes.
feel like there's a stat out there that whenever he crosses like 35 or something, he goes on to average 80 odd. And whenever he scores a ton, he makes it count as well. The biggest examples are his most recent ton versus Zimbabwe and that ton versus India in the first test, I want to say, in the 5-match series that happened last year in
Yes,
India, right?
196 in
Yes. So
Hyderabad.
it's those kinds of innings that kind of inflate Ollie Pope's average. But then again, he is experienced. He was vice captain of England not too long ago and captaining them as well in Ben Stokes' absence. But then, like, the other option is Jacob Bethel, exciting, but also a false number 3, right? So it's not like he would have completely solved their problems.
I don't know if he's the false number 3. He might just be a number 3. Like a false number 3 in this team might be Ben Stokes, right?
Or Chris Wokes, if you
Or
go
Chris
down the
Wokes,
Mulder
yeah,
route.
yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man.
I'll be big. I'm still a bit iffy on Jacob Bethel because unlike I think most of our team, I'm more traditional when it comes to test selection, which is the complete opposite to the way to I am when it comes to T20 selection.
No, that's fair. Also, I mean, barring Ollie Pope, who could very well be binned mid-series and they replace him with Jacob Bethel, that's very much on the cards, could happen. But I feel like given that he has experience and he just scored a ton versus Zimbabwe, you kind of give him a go up front. And all he really needs to do in the first 3 test matches, which he probably gets, 2 or 3 tests, he needs to score a big ton. And that should solve everything.
Yeah, so I think England's issue is that Duckett's probably quite consistent. He's unlike, I think, Crawley and Pope. Duckett's probably like a high floor, low ceiling batter, whereas Crawley and Pope are both very high ceiling, extremely low floors.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think I'll call Ben Duckett low ceiling because I feel like he is quite consistent for the sort of batter he is, aggressive and, with all those sweep shots, he has all 4, right? Conventional, lap sweep, reverse sweep, and paddle, I want to say. I've forgotten the last sweep.
That is paddle. It is paddle, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so we've talked about those guys. Let's talk a bit about Joe Root. He probably is the most important player for England in this series. I know that bowlers have to take 20 wickets, but without Root's runs, I don't see England doing much over here. And his record versus India is beyond spectacular. This guy has 2,846 runs for England versus India. He averages 58 with the bat. 10 of his overall 36 test runs have come versus India. And, for a guy who averages 50 overall, he's averaging 8 runs more for versus India. He is he's definitely the best test batter of the 2020s. I think that's a very fair claim to make.
Yes.
And Joe Root does even well versus India when he's playing them in England. So if I compare those 2 records versus India and England, he has scored 1,574 runs at an average of nearly 75, and he's got 7 of his overall 10 tons in England. Whereas in India, he's averaging a touch under 55. I don't know the numbers of India. I don't have them handy. But overall in England, he scored 6,792 runs at an average of 55. So he's done better at home versus away. 21 of his 36 tons have come in England. I feel like if Joe Root scores 500 runs in this series, then India are in trouble. And that could very well happen.
Yeah, definitely, right? I think he's unbelievable. I also think he matches up quite well to the Indian bowlers in England. So I was just looking this up. So he averages 197 versus Siraj in England.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
insane.
so it's 135 versus Jadeja. Bumrah, he still averages 40 versus Bumrah in England.
That is crazy, right?
Yeah,
Because it's Bumrah.
no, but that is an older version of Bumrah, granted. I think we can probably say that. He somehow averages 31 versus Shardul Thakur. He's probably been the best bowler in the low sample size we've seen
Yeah, it's
against
crazy
Joe
how
Root.
post-injury Bumrah is a different beast altogether. But yes, I feel like that'll be the biggest task for England's batters. They'll be really happy with the fact that Bumrah is only going to be featuring in 3 out of the 5 Test matches, right? But I feel like Joe Root is that biggest wicket that India need to get, and a lot kind of uh, rests with him as far as England faring well in this Test series is concerned. Other than that, I feel like the bowling attack will be tested. I'm really happy that they've gone with Vokes, who will obviously be the new ball bowler. He'll get the ball to nibble around. Bryden Cass can bend over his back, right? He can bowl the short deliveries. He can crank up his pace. And Josh Tongue is similar, I would say. And maybe for Headingley, it makes sense to go with these two because we are told that the conditions are dry, right? And it's going to be soaring north of 30 degrees centigrade during the test match. Now, of course, this is all mere conjecture because we'll only know when the test starts, but you have to play a spinner and then you probably go for more bowlers who can crank it up as far as pace is concerned. Maybe on decks where the ball nibbles around a bit more, you bring in the wobble ball specialist in Sam Cook because he only bowls it at 76, 77 miles per hour. But it's a good option to have.
So the way I'm seeing it, I think, is Vokes and Cook are competing for the same spot. If they think Vokes isn't fit or he needs a rest, they'll probably bring Cook in.
I'm not sure, man. I feel like
Yeah,
if you've got a lot of purchase off the deck, then you play both of them. Why not?
You could, but I don't think England will. I think that's kind of the way I'm seeing things with them. And also, like I've seen pictures of the pitch. I think it looks quite green.
Yeah, but don't ever fall for that.
It's a couple of days before the test, so if
They'll
it
shave
if
the
it
grass.
does remain green, I think it might play
out.
like Lords then, right?
It could. But then again, every time there is any sort of discourse around the surface being too green, 75% of the times it's a flat deck. I've seen this happen time and time again, right? So I wouldn't fall for the pictures, honestly. And I think that's what George Dobell also said in his tweet, weirdly enough. But I see Sam Cook is someone who could slot in ahead of Josh Tongue whenever conditions are more seam friendly, right? And you can get the ball to nibble off the deck. I see Overton as a cast replacement, right? Because obviously with those kinds of bowlers, you can't expect them to play all 5 test matches. Chris Vokes is someone who I actually see is playing all 5 test matches.
Yeah, he's incredibly fit. If he's actually fit, he can play. He's a workhorse, isn't he? He plays all 6 tests last summer from memory. Or does he miss one?
Last summer?
That was West Indies and Sri Lanka.
I think he did. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Quite sure.
So England, I think, so they play 6 tests a summer. It's either 5-1 or 3-3 from memory.
Interesting to see Bash in there as not interesting. We all expected him to be England's lone spinner. But the thing is that whilst I feel like he's overperformed for England in international cricket, because if you compare his bowling averages in international cricket versus whatever he averages for Somerset, there's a big gulf. But then India have got tons of left-handed batters, or could have tons of left-handed batters. So that is a very favorable matchup for Shoaib Bashir. And this could be like the defining moment for him in this very young career as well.
Yeah, definitely, right. I think one of the I think everyone probably undervalues Moeen Ali's impacts in England series wins over India in the past. Where
No, I don't think anyone does, man.
I think he repeatedly has done well versus India in England, which is very shame. But he gets smashed by India in India, which is bizarre when you think about it, right? I think the spinner does play a pretty key role in England, even though it isn't the same as it's in Asia. It's not like New Zealand where they're completely useless.
Yeah. No, that's very, very true. And we even saw in the Lord's Test, the World Test Championship final, and the Trent Bridge Test, England versus Zimbabwe, that spinners got some purchase. In Lord's, they got it over time. And in Trent Bridge, I mean, Bash took 9 wickets, right? I know it's Zimbabwe or whatever, but you can't just not give him credit for taking a 9 for across 2 innings. And I feel like whilst it is stable, England's 11, and I mean, they've got some options within their squad as well. I feel like the lack of experience with respect to the fast bowlers, barring Chris Vokes, obviously, is not ideal. And the batting should be fine. But these guys have to face Bumrah in 3 test matches. We can't not talk about that either.
We were looking at Harry Brooks' numbers. He's terrible versus spin in England. He is averaging 22 versus spin in England.
He's terrible versus spin, period.
Yeah, but in England, Behram, that's the surprising part. How can you be bad versus spin in England? That's what I'm surprised with.
You've got to be bad versus spin in England to be an absolute shit show versus spin elsewhere.
Yes. So that could be very interesting. Again, I
No,
think the
very
only
good.
way. So again, it's gonna sound like a very obvious thing, but the what India do needs to do is get Brute and Brook as early as possible at the crease. Right, that's your only hope
Yeah, I
at this.
suppose so.
Because if the top three get off to a good start, Brute will just he can just milk runs at Villa at this point, right?
Yeah. What I'll be interesting to see is whether or not Zach Crawley averages 30 by the end of the series. And now that I've said that, expect him to score a double ton in the very first test match. But overall, England are looking good and they are looking
Yeah,
far
I
more
like.
settled than India.
So if Bashir is your worst bowler, I don't think it's too terrible. I like the seamers, all four of them, including Stokes. There's no highs or lows. Like Wokes is incredible in England, so
Yeah.
everyone else you'd expect was good at the like decent. Like there's no bad seamers there.
I'm just very, very curious to see how long Ben Stokes bowls as far as his spells are concerned. Because when I went over to England last summer, he was just fresh off that operation and he was bowling like 8-7 over spells. And both Jared and I were completely flabbergasted as to why he is doing that to himself. But I'm very interested to see how he uses himself in all of this. But overall, England looking good and slightly better than India, of course. And I think that's pretty much it for them. You can remove the graphic. And before we move on to India, we shall be taking a short break. You guys are watching Good Areas live with Behram and Varun, and we will be back in like half a minute. So go nowhere.
Ross Taylor couldn't see at night or when the clouds were in. Eventually, he had to see an eye specialist who would fix his eyesight. In the 2 years before the change, he still averaged more than 50 in international cricket. The top level of batting talent can basically see in the dark. That is who we are talking about in our new book, The Art of Batting. Head over and order your copy today.
Welcome back to Good Areas Live. You guys are with Behram and Varun. And turn the graphic off for now, Varun, because I have other stuff to talk to you about with respect to India. Right? I actually want to pick your brain on Shubman Gill as captain. Now, it does kind of make sense in the long run because they had been grooming him and he is thought of as someone who will be a mainstay for India in years to come, him and Jaiswal basically. But personally, if you'd asked me, I would have gone for Rishabh Pant. I feel like you can split the captaincy duties in all three formats. Although India has been the sort of, or the BCCI has been the sort of cricketing board which does like the idea of multi-format captains. We've seen it with Rohit, we've seen it with Kohli, and now Gill obviously won't be captaining the T20I side. But then again, if he has control over both the ODI and Test teams, maybe that's something that the administrators are in favor of. But barring that hot streak that he experienced or he enjoyed, Shubman Gill last year, I mean, overall record is not that amazing. He's averaging 35 with the bat in 32 test matches. He was quite vulnerable in Australia and kept getting bowled. But then you'd think that him batting at 4, which does seem to be the tactic that India are going for, will help ease that issue for him because, you know, the ball will hopefully be a bit older. And number 4 is that main batting position in Test cricket. But he has massive shoes to fill. I mean, Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli were the last two batters who batted for India at 4. And you'd have to go all the way back into the early 1990s, I think, to find another or different number 4 batter.
Yeah, so I think who was the number 4 before Sachin? I think Venkateswarkar did it for a while, I think.
Maybe Manjrekar?
For some reason, Sanjay gives you number 3 vibes. I don't know why.
Yeah, Sanjay does give me number 3 vibes as well.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
It's an absolute luxury, isn't it? Just to have
what about
Sachin
Azhar?
and Virat. Azhar was the
Azhar.
number 5. I think Sachin moves from 6 to 4 because Azhar did not want to get out of 5, from what I've heard.
Okay.
Yeah. Someone told me that on the comments in one of the videos.
Also,
it's such a
Bumrah
luxury,
was
isn't
the...
it? Like,
Yeah.
so to have Sachin and Virat back to back, not just at number 4, number 3. We're Dravid and Pujara back to back as well, right?
Yeah. No, it's massive shoes to fill, although the last 4-5 years of Virat's career aren't as impressive and his numbers are that of a replacement batter. Plus, today Saad and I were looking at all of his tours to England, right? All 4 of the tours. And in the first tour, he gets obliterated by Anderson.
It's not 4. I think it's just 1. But the last one, they played the 5th test.
Oh,
different year.
yes. You're right.
Yeah.
It is 3 tours if you think about it. But he's averaging around 27, 28 in that last one. And then in the first one, he gets annihilated by Anderson's same 4th to 5th stump line, which is also how he got out every single time in Australia recently.
Yes.
And he averaged 13. But in that 2018 series where he goes bonkers, he averages like 59, right? Now, Virat, if you look at him overall, then those shoes are massive to fill. But if you look at the last 4-5 years, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if Gill averages 38 or 39 this series, would you be satisfied?
I'd be extremely pleased if he averages 38, 39. I don't think Gill needs to have a great series, but he can't have a bad series. That's the thing.
Yeah,
The fans will rip him apart if he averages 25.
he is
Do
a
they not?
they would, and I feel like it's added pressure batting at 4 and captaining the team, even if the conditions should suit him better than number 3. And he was a high performing number 3 for a bit in there. He was the best number 3 in the world for a very small bit, right? But Shubman Gill is supposed to be generational. We all think that he has an extremely high ceiling and he is going to be a mainstay for India. It's just that the Indian media and the pressure of captaining India can be so brutal that this is going to be a bit of a litmus test for Shubman Gill, not just with respect to his captaincy, but also with respect to his batting and how he copes with that media pressure, which is inevitable. When you're from the subcontinent, right? And then again, you've got the task of managing the Bumrah overs, which is not so straightforward. I don't know how much of a say he has over the ultimate starting 11 selection, because Gautam Gambhir now probably has unilateral power with no Rohit and no Kohli. So, yeah, I mean, how do you look at all of that? Do you think he's going to have some major influence?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, he's not a very exciting captain. I think that's the thing, isn't it? So I think Jared was discussing it somewhere that he's a very formulaic captain, where he just has a plan and he'll just follow it. And you can't really do that in Test cricket. It's very difficult because the game just can change.
True.
So there is an element. So from what we can see, Gambhir does seem to have the most influence with the team and the tactics. Again, I don't really know. So it's one of those things where, so you almost had to give Shubman the captaincy, because I think with Pant, I think the IPL might have just traumatized the BCCI, where he just
Also,
does
yeah,
not.
also true.
Yeah, I think he just did not look comfortable being the captain, right? I think his
But then
natural game might suffer as well.
You've got to look at his team as well. They had no bowlers for the longest time, right?
Yeah, but I think even what I've seen with Delhi, I think with Pant, he does just seem to just try to be different when he's the captain.
Look,
Whereas you want
if
Pant
you
to
ask
just be
me-
free, right?
If you ask me completely objectively, Bumrah should be captain, but Bumrah
Yeah.
cannot play all the tests, right? And he said that the BCCI approached him, but because he can't play all tests and his doctor has also advised him to do the same, to take breaks, that's why he is ruled out from that, opportunity or leadership position. I just felt that if you give, one format to a single player, then they can maybe focus more on that single format. Whereas now, if the test team is in tatters, it might impact Gill and ODIs, vice versa. And I just feel like it's a big task on its own to captain in multi-formats now, especially where cricket is headed. But then again, I like the fact that he's 25. He's still a few years away from his age of batting maturity. He's supposed to get better. He is already a really, really good bat, forgetting the 35 average, of course, because he started young. We also have to consider
Yeah.
that, right?
Agreed.
And he's
started
playing
young as an opener.
as an opener, and has been playing in the pace playing pandemic, the wobble seam era. So you have to factor in all of those things. But yeah, I mean, I'm quite keen to see how he fares. Before we get to the lineup, Varun, there are a few players that I want you to discuss with you. One of those players is Shreyas Iyer. I know you're not big on him, but if you look at his first class record, he's averaging around 48.5 in 81 games. And for India, he's averaging close to 37 in 14 test matches. He was a walking wicket in Sena conditions, but look at how much he's upskilled. He has completely conquered his short ball demon, and he seems to be at the peak of his powers. How do you feel about him not being there?
I do think they mishandled him last year. When I definitely feel like he should have been given a longer rope, especially away from home. Just give him a chance to develop. I don't have an issue with him not being in the squad this year, though. Mainly because I think if you do look at his Ranji season, a lot of it is, I think, carried by like a 200 on a flat pitch against a bad team. So I don't think his numbers do look that great. You could still argue he could be in the A squad to try it. The other batter I think was mishandled was Sarfaraz, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I do think that was a complete shit show from BCCI.
Sarfaraz's first-class numbers are otherworldly. When you look at them, you want to pinch yourself and you're like, is this real? Or have they made a mistake over here? Because in 55 first-class games, the man is averaging nearly 66 with the bat, right? For India, he has a better average than Shreyas, although he's played less. He's played 6 test matches and he's averaging 37.1. Now, he was a bit vulnerable or susceptible versus the short delivery, which is why we didn't really get to see him in Australia. But over here, that shouldn't matter as much. I don't know how he could fare or would fare versus lateral movement, but with a first-class record like that, you would expect the Indian selectors to have a wee bit more faith.
Yeah, I think so. I think the smartest thing there again would have just been give him in Australia and England. Like with that first class record, he earned the right to flop in international cricket, right? If he
Yeah, I
fails,
think
he
so.
fails. Who cares? Like, no, none of your batters are making any runs anyway. Like, what are you going to lose in this situation?
Do you think his fitness would have played a role over here?
No, I think he's red ball fit from what I could tell. Like also one of the things I hate is when people are like, "Oh, he just started off really well." Like if he, let's say he was averaging 37 and his in all his innings were spread apart, it's still a sample size of like 6 test matches, is it not? Like,
Yeah.
any which way you'll be talking about small sample size and high variance, whether or not he made his runs in the first, like third and sixth test or all in the first test, right?
Yeah, that's very, very valid. But, I don't have a major issue with both of these guys not making it because I like the two batters who have made it. I know you're not big on Sai Sudarshan either. You've been saying, I'd sell over and over again every time we mention him in the Good Areas chat. And Cheyenne and I are very much pro Sai. In fact, I've mentioned this plenty of times before. He's my favorite Sai, ahead of Kishore and the Opa Gangnam style singer. But, for a number 3 bat, because that's where he's played his first class cricket, although the sample size is low, he's only played 29 matches, and you'd have to say that that's fortunate in the first place to make your India test debut only after 29 first-class games. He's averaging almost 40. You'd take that if he averages almost 40 at number 3 in this series, but that's also provided if they bat him at 3.
Oh, absolutely. You take that any day. Probably a number 3
Yeah.
in this era, right?
Yeah,
So there's two reasons I'm nervous about him. Again, the average of 39-40 for someone who's played a lot of cricket in India isn't that high. Again,
Yes,
he's very
that's-
young,
that's
so
a big thing.
I'll give
He's
him
played in
that.
India, right?
He's very
Yeah.
young, so I'll give him that. And even in the
He's your age.
yeah. I think he's the same year as me. I think he
He's
might be younger.
23 years of age. I don't
Yeah,
know if
he's
he's
younger
the
than
same
me.
year.
Yeah. He must be like November or September, right?
Look, left-handed bat, extremely stylish, an absolute treat to watch when he's on song. Like, as far as aesthetic brilliance goes, I'm a
Yeah.
big Sai Sudarshan fan, right?
I think the
And,
second thing is
he's-
I'm afraid he's just a new shiny toy for Indian social media. Like we saw this with Shreyas Sarfraz. They like someone to push, and I think I think he has all it takes is 2 bad tests for him, and then he'll just be out of fashion again.
That's a very valid
So
point.
I'm
And
like,
the shiny
don't
new toy
rush him
syndrome-
if you don't need to, right?
Yeah, that shiny new toy syndrome you speak of is very valid for subcontinent teams again. I've seen India do this. I've seen Pakistan do this. With Sai Sudarshan, I feel like, look, if you have identified him as a number 3 batter specifically, which is what I feel they should do if he is going to play, then you just stick with him. You let him grow and develop his game. Obviously, he's 23 years of age. But think of that, 96 odd that he scored in 47 deliveries, I want to say, in the final of the IPL a couple of years back versus CSK. He was even younger, and he's done it at the big stage. So
Yep.
pressure isn't an issue with Sai. That I can say, right? Now, of course, I don't know how he would fare in England, but his game suits or seems to suit, conditions where the ball would move around a bit. I would like to think so. I'm not quite sure about that, but at least, he
It
passes the eye
looks
test.
he's very technically correct, but then he's very technically correct in white ball cricket from what we've seen. Because everyone who's seen him bat has seen him in white ball cricket. I don't know how many people are looking at his 8 footage, right? For example. But
Also,
I
he's an
think
anti standard deviation king, where you won't see a lot of low scores. There'll just be a lot of 40s.
No, but in Test cricket, in first class cricket, he is the standard deviation king. He has,
Really?
Yeah, his conversion rate is insane in Test cricket. He's either getting 100 or just not getting anything.
You mean first class cricket? He hasn't played
So
Test
first
cricket.
class cricket, yes.
Yeah. I think if you are going for a projection selection, I don't mind Sai. But then again, to
Yeah.
your point, I would like to see them stick with him, right?
Yeah, you have
as
to back
opposed
him.
To,
If you're
as
gonna,
opposed to just binning him.
so the other thing is like you could try him as the number 6, as the rookie spot. Give him a few years and let Karan be the number 3. We'll do that when we do the team in a bit. We can go
But
through all
just-
the combos.
Yeah, just on Karun, right? You're looking at a guy who in his second test match scored that unbeaten 303. Now, he's played 6 tests and he scored 374 runs. So it's only been that triple 100, which is his only test 100. And imagine getting a triple when you scoring your maiden test 100. That is phenomenal, right? And it's a great story. But then he was axed and we didn't see Karun Nair for years and years and years. And so many former cricketers also kind of, threw shade at selectors over the years. Now, 116 first-class games for him. He's averaging nearly 50 and he just scored 204 versus the Lions in the A game. So Karun Nair has earned his stripes, which is why I like the story. But for me, he would be ideal for number 5. Rishabh Pant, however, in the presser has said that he's batting at 5, and now
Yeah.
that makes me nervous for Karan because they might not play him at all and might just go Nitish Kumar Reddy at 6 and Jadeja at 7. And I don't think that's a great ploy.
I don't mind that simply because not the Nitish Kumar Reddy thing. Like to me, Karan's not useful to me if he's only going to bat at 5 and 6. If you're going
But
to be a
5 is a
senior
decent
professional
number.
batter, no. If you're going to be a senior professional batter, you have to bat at 3 and 4 in this team, right? Because 5 and 6, leave that to the Sai Sudarshan or Dhruv Jurel, one of those lot, right? Because this upside would be that they get used to Test cricket and then they can move up, right? If you are in very good form, bat at 3 or bat at 4, and then try to score runs there, right? At least for the next 3 years.
We'll
That's what
come
I'm
back
thinking
to
with
this.
Yes.
We'll definitely come back to this because I have more to add. But before that, we are going to be taking a short break. You guys are watching Good Areas Live with Behram and Varun, and we will be back in like half a minute. So go nowhere.
Brian Lara used pot plants to work on his placement. John Wright glued his glove to his bat. Sachin Tendulkar dug up practice pitches. Tatenda Taibu cut the top off his bat. Claire Taylor used a hockey grip. Steve Smith was from tennis. Dean Jones would call phantom runs. And Victor Trumper turned the nets into a war zone to survive. The best batters in the world do whatever they have to make runs. We have told their stories in our new book, The Art of Batting.
Welcome back to Good Areas Live. You guys are with Behram and Varun of the House of Alvaconda. And we are previewing India versus England. Varun made a claim, or not a claim, basically he provided some rationale as to why he would like to watch Sai Sudarshan, someone who's relatively inexperienced, bat at 6 and Karun Nair at 3. My only argument to that, Varun, is that there's a guy who bats at 3. Right? And who could be a mainstay for India at 3 in years to come. And then there is a guy who I find to be more reliable in Test cricket. So I would rather have Karun Nair face the ball when it's a bit softer, a bit older. And I feel like at number 5, he could absolutely dominate. So that's the other flip side of the coin.
So I do agree that Sai could be a number 3. I'm not saying, I just don't think he needs to be that number now, right? I do, because if you look back, again, this is where I do think the older selection methods do make more sense. Where like traditionally, even Ricky Ponting starts at 6, Sachin starts at 6, Virat starts at 6. They have a few years at 6. Once the team thinks they're ready, then they're pushed up the order, right? Like Sai may or may not be ready because I don't think you are a specialist number 3 or number 4, right? The only specialist position I think that exists is an opener.
I would say top 3 is more specialist, but now it's gotten a bit different because
Kinda.
no one's succeeding at number 3 apart from maybe Kane.
Yeah. Because I also think it's so rogue at number 3, right? Everyone's playing anyone at 3. So I do think there is some value in. If I was playing Karan, it has to be a 3 or 4, right? I'd play him at 3 simply because I'm like, you're the experienced professional. We need to protect these young a lot. Figure shit out, right?
Well, you
It
guys
will
in the
benefit
comment
us
section.
in the future.
Yeah, you guys let us know in the comment section what you feel more comfortable with because both Varun and I have different thought processes, but both thought processes have value over here, I feel. So let us know what you feel in the comment section. Also, another guy who missed out on this test series was Mohammad Shami. 229 test wickets at under 28 apiece. But in England, I was looking at his record, 14 tests, 42 wickets, an average of 40.5 with the ball, which is quite poor. I would have still picked him just because of the experience, and he's one of the best bowlers in the modern era to attack the stumps. But then again, I feel like perhaps he's not test match fit because if there was a similar situation to Bumrah where he could play in 2 or 3 test matches, I feel like they'd pick him.
Yeah, it's funny you say he's one of the best bowlers to attack the stumps when his entire show in England is he doesn't attack it enough.
Yeah, that's also fair.
So because
But
he's
overall,
got the classic subcontinent bowler issue of because if you're like a subcontinent bowler, you either bowl that 7 to 8 meter length for the skiddy bounce, or you bowl full for reverse. Either of those things don't translate well to England. Right?
Yeah.
I think we privately discussed how Wasim Akram doesn't have a great England record, and
28, right? That's
isn't great in
that's
centre,
average.
right?
Yes.
It was that's partly because they couldn't find the right length. We talk about how like every country is unique. It's like in Senna that you hit 6 to 7 meters, you get bored and you hit it again. There is no don't deviate, and that's true for all the countries. And I don't think a lot of the bowlers do realize that. The ones that do are obviously elite.
Yeah. Also, it might as well be time to discuss Jasprit Bumrah. Obviously, 205 wickets in 45 test matches at a bowling average of 19.4 for bowlers in test cricket who have more than 200 wickets. No one has averaged better than Bumrah. That is probably my favorite Bumrah stat. He will be playing 3 test matches. We know this. And we were also discussing privately in our group which 3 tests that would be. Of course, you play him at Headingley because you want to start strong, right? And then is the big question, because you want him to play at Lords, but maybe Edgbaston suits him most. And then you are in a situation where you just decide, as per the series, scenario, whether you play him in the 4th test or the 5th test. It is a head-scratching sort of, dilemma.
Yeah, I think so. Like you play, I think he said he's playing in the first test, right? That's a guarantee from him.
Yeah.
And if India win, does he need to play the second, or do you just go play the second anyway?
I don't know. You
Like if
have
India
to
go
play him at
2-0 up, you
Lords,
can
though.
happily rest him at 3, right? In the third test.
Bumrah plus the Lord's slope.
That is very true. That is quite true.
You take that, right? But Edgbaston has been really good for fast bowlers. But I was actually telling this or asking Saad this, that would you not rather play Bumrah in the conditions that are least conducive towards fast bowling? Because he's going to be good anyway.
Yeah, also kind of get Saad's point that he's like, play him on the bowling friendly surfaces so you can guarantee a win, right?
Yes.
Because if we look at like the likely outcomes for India's win, it is Bumrah goes nuts, and the other is England do something brain dead.
Yes.
Right?
And both the odds of both of those things happening is very high.
I think it's just, if you're an Indian fan, you're hoping those two aren't in the same match.
Also, I honestly feel, and I'd bet my money on this, that if Bumrah plays 3 test matches, he is winning 2 for India against this.
Yeah,
England
that's
team.
fair. He'll at least win 1, I think. If Bumrah plays 3, he'll win you 1.
We also don't know how the weather will act up throughout the series and how many draws we get just because of the English rain, which is notorious or infamous.
I think we'll get
right?
1 draw just because of rain. It's because it's England. Like, it's a good bet.
Yeah. I think that's fair, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I personally feel, as far as India's bowling attack is concerned, that Arshdeep plays whenever Bumrah doesn't play, and Siraj is probably your second seamer throughout.
Do you want to do that team selection thing?
Yes,
then?
yes. Bring that up, right?
Okay, I think
You
someone can
place-
get the other layout.
Oh,
So
you
give
can't
me a
get the
top
other
6.
layout?
Yeah, I don't know.
My top 6 for India, and this obviously would be different for the both of us, would be KL Rahul, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Sai Sudarshan, Shubman Gill, Karun Nair, Rishabh Pant. But I know Pant's batting at 5. He said he'll bat at 5. So I would personally go with that. And then originally, if you remember, I wanted both Nitish Kumar Reddy and Jadeja at 7 and 8. And then you guys convinced me otherwise, that would be too defensive an option. So now I also believe that based on conditions, only one of NKR or Jaddu should play.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I agree with
That's
you.
the big question. $1 million question, right?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think the issue I have with Nitish is that I don't think at this point he's in India's 5 best batters. So I think playing him at 6 is quite risky, especially because I have no faith in the top order.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
Yeah, and he definitely isn't a good enough bowler to be 7 or 8.
Originally, I thought you'd go with more batting insurance with Nitish at 7 and Jadeja at 8. But then I thought that, look, you're going to win with 20 wickets. It's not like England are invincible. If anything, they're very much vincible. So, yeah, you'd probably go with 4 frontline bowlers. And I like your tactic that you probably just play Kuldeep in every game. And Jadeja acts as a second spinner if and when conditions allow for that, which could be frequent if the summer remains dry in England.
Yeah. I think I had Kuldeep in my team anyway, simply because I don't think India are 4 trustworthy seamers. But
By the way, I have to ask you, will we see India at any point in the series triple deep? Akash,
it is
Kul,
a realistic possibility.
Akash, Kul and Arsh.
It is a possibility, is it not?
Look, I feel like you only play Arshdeep when Bumrah doesn't play because you've got Siraj as another new ball bowler, or you play Arshdeep if Siraj is shitting the bed big time. Those are the 2 scenarios. I don't know which one of Akashdeep and Prasidh Krishna, both hit the deck hard kind of bowlers, is better, because you need a bouncer bowler, right? That's going to be their role, I feel. You tell me, who's been faring better, who's done better in first class, and do they just rotate the 2 throughout?
No, I think you could rotate the 2. I like Prasid more because I think, again, it is IPL form, but whatever I've seen of pitch maps, it looks like his pitch map could translate well to Test cricket. And Akashdeep, Akashdeep is such a weird bowler because it seems like he should be a very good stock bowler, but he hasn't been always.
All I'm going to say is that they could potentially have it all rolling in the deep, because they've got 3 of them, right? But Kuldeep, for me, is a very important player over here because he turns the ball in both directions. Even if there's a hint of spin around, England aren't a really good team, or actually a pathetic team facing spin. So he becomes all the more important for me. And yeah, I mean, there's inexperience in India's bowling. And you could say it's a bit radical, but it does work in theory for me. We haven't even discussed Lord
Yeah.
Shardul.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure from what we've seen he is going to play.
Yeah. Shardul?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
They're
I
going
think
for
from,
him as the
from
third
what I've
seamer?
seen. No, it's the fourth seamer at 8.
Okay.
They're
yeah,
going to go four
fourth
seamers
seamer.
in Jadeja from what I've seen. I think.
Okay. Interesting.
I have a feeling because Gambhir does like his all-rounders, right? I think they will go for NKR at 6.
I feel like, if you want more batting, you go with NKR. If you want better bowling, you go with Lord Shardul. He was amazing in the Ranji Trophy, if I'm not wrong. Had a really, really good season. Or maybe I'm mixing things, but that's
Yeah.
what my memory.
And also, I've heard in the intra squad ace, the intra A squad game, he had 100 versus Bumrah, Siraj, and Prasidh.
Okay, all right then. Yeah, I mean, I really like the selection in England, right? Because that's where
Yeah.
he's supposed to be good. I mean, look, there are guys over here who I feel will only come into play if there's an injury. Although I'm not Gautam Gambhir and I don't have any right to speak about this because I haven't sweat any actual sweat for India. So Gambhir obviously knows better. I am taking the piss out of him, by the way, for those
Yes.
of you who didn't get that. So yeah, Eastvaran for me is a backup for the top order. If there are injuries, he
I think
comes
that's
in.
fair. I don't think he plays in the first.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Washington is probably backup for Jadeja, although I will say this, Jadeja is obviously not just the experience, the fielding, the batting, but the fact that in England have more right-handed batters, he just makes more sense overall.
Also,
would be surprised
I
to
wonder if
see
the
Washington.
pitches do end up being more dry. You could go Jadeja and 7, Washington at 8.
But then you're not playing Kuldeep, right?
Yeah, that's the issue. Yep.
That's the issue. When I want Kuldeep to play if the surface is dry. It's I mean, I just feel like those guys are backup players. Eastvaran, Washington. I'm not sure about Shardul. I don't think Rana will come into play because he's like a traveling reserve. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting squad.
I think
Dhruv
Rana, they just
Jurel.
want Rana for pace.
Who do you think Dhruv Jurel is a replacement for? Just for Pant or maybe they could play both of those guys together?
I think they could play both because I think Jurel is in India's 5 best batsers from whatever I've seen of him. He's always looked good to me. Like he just I think at one point in 6 innings he had 5 50s or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
So he's clearly done well everywhere. So if I have to do it, I have Karun 3, Shubman 4, Pant 5. 1 second. I forgot about it.
I really
Dhruv
like
Jurel.
this thing that you've done over here because in my mind you were doing something on Excel and that's why I was shooting your idea down. Had I known this was what you're talking about, I would have said yes from the get-go.
Yeah, so Dhruv Jurel 6, Ravindra Jadeja 7. I have Shardul Thakur at 8 for now because I can't really think of anyone else. And then these 3 seamers, right? That's the way I'm thinking about it.
I don't
if
know,
it is
man. I would
spinning-
play Kuldeep. I would play Kuldeep in the first test match.
Yeah,
I would want to see how he goes. And the conditions are expected
The
to be
other
dry.
option is you have Kuldeep at 8 and then...
Yeah. No, but
The-
in this
these
team, I
three,
don't
right?
have Jadeja. In this team,
Okay,
if it's not
NKR at
turning
7.
heaps, then NKR is my number 7 and Jadeja is out. If it is turning,
Okay.
then Jadeja comes in for Nitish Kumar Reddy, and I would have the same bowling attack. I feel like I am quite comfortable with Bumrah, Siraj, and Prasidh over Akash. Right? Because again, I know IPL form shouldn't count for anything, but I was really impressed, man. Like this guy has upskilled big time and he's gotten a lot more accurate. Whereas I remember him as someone who was wayward. And he can crank it up.
Prasidh has finally found his good, own length, which is very good. I think that's probably the good part.
He's probably the quickest after Bumrah, right? I think so.
Yes, I assume it. No, Rana would be quicker than both of them. I'd
Yeah,
imagine.
Rana might.
I think Rana is
But
probably
Rana
the
again,
quickest. He's
Rana
erratic
is-
though. He's completely erratic.
Rana is a
Like
travelling
Harshit
reserve.
Rana is the kind of bowler England would pick if it makes sense.
He is the kind of bowler that Gautam Gambhir loves. So that much we do know. Okay, we've kind of figured out team combinations and how that might change over the course of the series. Of course, some surfaces will be expected to turn more and they'll bring in more spinners. And then where there's no turn on offer, you maybe bring in your Sharduls and your Nitish Kumar Reddys and go from there. I'm only fearing that they might go for Nitish at 6 and Jadeja at 7 and Karun is not going to play. I feel like that's on the table over here
So you're thinking
for
this.
Gambhir.
Okay. Sorry, the other way around.
I agree,
Yeah.
Singh's silly point, and Varun agrees as well. Nitish Kumar Reddy's bowling, you don't expect a lot from it in these conditions, I feel.
No, completely agree. I think it is
Yeah.
pretty useless with the ball, right?
Yes. Emu Boss is saying, where's Akshar, man? How many of those guys do you want to select then, right?
Yeah, you have
Like,
Washington already. I don't even know he plays every
Yeah.
game.
And
How many
he's
games
a
does he
right
play?
arm off spinner. Jadeja's a slow left armour. You have variety having Washington in there, right? I mean, Akshar is just unlucky to exist in the same era as Jadeja, if we're being real over here, right? All right, Krishna Srinivasan has an even hotter take. He says, I would rather have Kamboj instead of Rana.
Kamboj was good in the A games.
He was good in the A games, but yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, he's a bit more like dibbly-dobbly. Is it like... he's like a budget Sam Cook, I think, from what I've seen of him. Like,
yeah, look, it'll be interesting to see what sort of bowling attacks India plays throughout the series and how they kind of sort out their number 6, 7, 8.
Again, I feel like also what KL Rahul do we see, right?
Man, I mean, he is versatile. He's done well in England as an opening bat.
Because I think all of us would agree he had a great series in Australia, and it still only averages 30 in this. Then that's what latest BGC, isn't it?
It's true. But then again, he batted time, right?
Yeah. No, he batted time at the start. Then he just stops making runs.
Yeah.
Which is the most frustrating thing about him, isn't it?
KL has got to be the unluckiest Indian cricketer of this generation because he's looked as an asset who can bat 1 to 7 any position. And he has been used as such, and he's kept wicket at times, and he's been an opening batter at times.
I don't think that's always been the case in Test cricket. His position is largely consistent until like 2023. South Africa, that's when they move him around. But even as an opener, he's just so inconsistent. He starts off like I think he has to have a good series because
he's the Aiden Markram of India.
Yeah, we probably could make that argument. I think, as I said, I think Shubman Gill is the Aiden Markram of India.
True. We still have a wee bit more to talk about. So on this note, we shall be taking another break. You guys are watching Good Areas Live with Varun and Behram, and we'll be back in another half a minute. So stick around. There's more.
Ross Taylor couldn't see at night or when the clouds were in. Eventually, he had to see an eye specialist who would fix his eyesight. In the 2 years before the change, he still averaged more than 50 in international cricket. The top level of batting talent can basically see in the dark. That is who we are talking about in our new book, The Art of Batting. Head over and order your copy today.
Welcome back to Good Areas Live. You guys are with Behram and Varun. And I love this comment by Abhijit Bidway, if you can bring it up, Varun, where he says, KL is a batter of great knocks. I will take him everywhere. I agree. And his away record kind of stands out. You cannot not look at that, right?
Yeah. So what I think is he got the second most like centuries in center for an Indian opener, I think, after Gavaskar. I think if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I think
because he's probably a better center opener than Sehwag. I think you'd take him over Sehwag in center.
Yeah,
across
because versus lateral movement, I feel like KL has been all right. And, he was originally an opening bat. Now he's 33 years of age, back at doing what he does best, I suppose. And he was really I know the batting average of 30 looks underwhelming, but from what I remember of the Border Gavaskar Trophy, I liked what I saw from KL Rahul.
Again,
so
if he makes like 10-35 scores and not like 100 and like 10-9 ducks, I'll take it. Like, I just be consistent, man. Like, just please.
Honestly, Varun, out of all the people that I know, you are the one who has the least amount of confidence in India's batting lineup. Sure, they're inexperienced, but they're up against not a great bowling attack. Vokes is great. Yes. Sure, in England.
That's what just made me laugh because I feel like every all the English pundits are like, well, India have a really good. I'm like, I have no hope in this Indian team unless Bumrah goes nuts.
Well, it's you and Graham Swan because he looks at this as a warm-up series for
the Ashes.
Yeah, we can't forget that, right? Okay, I feel like we've discussed more or less everything. The last bit that I want to touch on before we end this podcast, Varun, is the venues. Now, Headingley and Edgbaston are two venues where England relatively does well. And that's what fixed test centres does. It allows you to play your first 2 test matches at those venues, which they've done, right? I think that England are probably favourites in those two, right? But all 3 other venues, Lord's, Old Trafford, the Oval, feel like India have a very, very good shout.
Yeah, that's it. But then again, are they going to be 1-1? Are they going to be 2-0 down? Are they going to be 2-0 up?
Are they going to be hampered by the rain, right?
Yeah. Again, that's the unlucky thing. What if India have a really good test match, but they don't win because the rain hurts it?
What if India are Ashes Manchestered? That's the term that I've come up with, right?
That's a good one. Yes, that's a very good one. More winners. Yeah.
When I look at the distribution of venues, I love that they're spaced out all test matches. That allows us to breathe. And honestly, after all of these ICC tournaments back to back, 18 months, 3 tournaments, I was burnt out. So I love the fact that we'll get pockets within this series. I feel like India's best bets are Lords and the Oval. And even Old Trafford is good, man. But it's going to turn at the Oval. If it's a dry English summer, it always does kind of turn at the Oval. So that's why you can play both of Jadeja and Kuldeep, right? Similar story for Manchester, but I feel like you'll get a flat deck over there. And the Manchester rain is also like infamous. Lords, I would say India favourites.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If Bumrah plays, definitely, right?
And Headingley and Edgbaston, I would say history suggests that England are favourites, but then I'm never going to kind of just say that this English team will win a game short, because that's just not how they play the sport.
Yeah. Again, it's very, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like 2-0 up and they're like, let's just give them 2 matches to make the series more exciting.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if England come back in the series, because they did that in the Ashes, right? But
Yes.
they don't have Broad, who did that for them. And I mean, Rishabh Pant was very happy that he's not going to be facing Anderson and Broad. Again, I feel for Jimmy, man. This was his series. Against this batting lineup, he would have been quite effective. And yeah, I don't know. It's just, it breaks my heart that he had to finish behind Shane Warne's test wicket tally, because it really could have been different.
Indeed. So close.
Anyway.
So close.
So you guys also let us know how you think India and England might fare on each of those venues in the comment section. And I feel like we can end this podcast with some predictions, Varun. And let's start off with the highest run scorer of the series for you.
I'm going to go safe and say Joe Root.
I'm also going to go safe and say Joe Root. Honestly, Joe Root is not averaging, but he's scoring over 100 runs per test versus India. And I have a strong feeling you might see him score 500 plus runs in the series. And if that happens, he'll be 2,000 away from Sachin. And then all of a sudden that gets a bit more real. If they get Joe Root out early consistently, then India should win this. I'll also say that. But for me, I'll go safe and say Root. For leading wicket taker, I'm also going safe and saying Chris Wokes. Although Bumrah could still be leading wicket taker even in 3 test matches.
Yeah, I was going to say
Remember
Wokes as well.
how I nailed this in the BGT? Do you remember that?
Yes. You did say he has to get 30 to 35 wickets, right? I remember.
And he did.
He nearly did. He would have got it more if he was fit for the last one.
Krishna Srinivasan is saying Jaiswal is going to score 500 plus. I wouldn't be
I'd love
surprised.
it.
Although new ball, lateral movement,
Yeah, so I
won't
think
be entirely easy.
before the BGT, I felt like if Jaiswal averages 35 across the 10 tests, I think it's a success. He exceeded my expectations in Australia.
And
now
I love
I don't want him to average like 25 in England, but like if he averages like 35, I'll take it. I think that's a good result.
Honestly, I feel like Jaiswal will have a good series. I also think that everyone has this Fab 4 of the future conversation. For me, it's just a Fab 1 for now. And Jaiswal is the Fab 1, right? I think he has a higher ceiling than Gill.
I think the
and
second
Rachin-
sentence still holds true independently.
Yeah, and Rachin is it's still early days for Rachin. Cam Green has been injured, right? I don't know. Harry Brook can't play spin. What did you have up over here just now?
That was like, I think if the pitches are like the final, India's in trouble. I'm like, the second sentence is true on its own anyway.
And plus, if the pitches are like the World Test Championship final, it's a shootout, no?
Yeah, it would be a shootout. Do you want to go up against Bumrah in that case?
No, I wouldn't want to go up against Bumrah and Rawalpindi, Varun. so this is a different ball game altogether, right? And
to be
I've
fair, like
seen
Pakistan would suit him because of reverse.
Yeah, and honestly, I've seen some of the videos where Bumrah is bowling in the nets, and yeah, I mean, that guy, I can just,
Yeah,
safe
even
as
in this
houses
IPL, he didn't
to
even
say
look
that
close
he's
to his
gonna go.
best, and he still went like just 6 and over, didn't he?
Yeah, plus, I mean, if they're going to rest him, then he'll be even better. And, they've learned their lessons from Australia where they broke him and overbowled him. But then again, everything was on the line, so I don't entirely blame Rohit either. So yeah, okay, we did Root for highest run scorer. And is your highest wicket taker also Chris Wokes?
Yeah. I think it's a safe bet because I think he'll play all 5 unless he's injured. Like again,
Alright.
like knowing our luck, what if Chris Wokes gets injured after the first test?
Knowing my luck or my jinxing powers, you never know. All right, player of the series for you.
Hmm.
I'm going
I'm
Wokesy
blanking
once
it.
again, by the way. I'm doubling
Yeah.
down on Chris Wokes.
I agree with you. I think it does seem like a Wokes kind of. No, I actually go Root because they always give it to the batters. Yeah.
Okay. Now, last prediction is the scoreline, and I originally thought 3-2 for either team, but then rain is surely it's going to spoil one test. So I'll go 3-1 England for now, Although I'm not
3-1
saying
England.
that, I could see a world in which India win this test series. I'm not saying they can't. But right now, I just feel like England is kind of, they're 60-40. Let's just say that.
I think if India win a test match, I'll take it.
Really?
Yeah.
Quite the
I'll
pessimist,
take it.
man.
Bro, I have no expectations. We lost 3-0 at home. Then Gautam Gambhir drops Shubman Gill for Washington Sundar as a specialist batter. I don't think I've looked at Test cricket the same way after that decision.
Imagine Washington Sundar batting at 3. Can we even not see that happening with all that's going on in Test cricket?
It's not an unusual possibility. That's what scares me, right?
Yeah. Anyway, that'll be all for our predictions and this podcast in general. So let us know your predictions for highest run scorer, player of the series, highest wicket taker, and the overall scoreline in the comment section below. We'll circle back to these whenever the series is over. And we'll be creating...
And we'll probably be doing third innings, right? For this? Some combination
We will be doing third innings. There will be a few scorecards here and there because Jared is not going to one test match and he's going to all others. So, of course, you might not see a lot of him, or you will still see a lot of him, but you might see a bit of us as well, I suppose.
Yes.
I mean, we're super pumped. It is a marquee series. It's not a warm-up series, not by any stretch. And I feel like we are about to see some, instant classics as far as Test cricket goes. And that'll be all. So we'll see you soon in another show. We have lots of stuff planned. You're getting like 6 to 7 podcasts every week for this entire summer. That's the plan. And I am in charge of that. So you can trust me that we'll be able to execute it, right? That kind of wraps this up. Just a quick reminder, you can go to goodareas.co and bookmark that webpage. That can prove to be your one-stop shop for all the fun work that we do as part of this team, whether it be written content, videos, or podcasts. And have a good week, a good weekend. Enjoy Test cricket. And that's all from us. Have a good one and goodbye.
I have traveled the cricketing world, and so I've collected 2 things: the phone numbers of random taxi drivers and overseas SIM cards. Rideshare apps have fixed the first part, and Saily is doing the second. Now, all you need is their eSIM on whatever plan works for you. You activate it, and you can use it anywhere in the cricketing world. It helps you save money. It is a global solution to a global problem. Stop fiddling with tiny SIMs and get the one that does it all. Go to Saily.com Good Areas and use the code Good Areas to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. Fly free with Saily.